Hello and welcome to this LabView video, which is ultimately going to demonstrate the concept and implementation of a shift register. It's also going to show you a few neat tools in LabView. So to set up some context here, let's say I'm building an application where a user is going to enter their most recent data point and output perhaps an average of the last 3 data points. So let's assume all of our measured values, might have a little bit of random error. This person would like to average the output of the last 3 data points. So that means we have to remember the last 3 data points. I guess there are two implementations here. We might put in 3 inputs here, so the user has to keep track of the last 3 data points. But the more sophisticated solution would be to have one input from the user and have my program keep track of the last 3 data points that the person entered. So I might put this in an indicator output box. And so there's my 2 numeric tools. So one thing I'm hearing is that I want this to happen again and again. So that's a while loop. So I'm going to open up my functions here, maybe. And oh goodness, turn. Okay, so we're going to come down to express, execution control, and while loop. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And you'll notice on my front panel that my stop button has appeared. Okay, so everything's working as I expected to. Now, I cannot simply wire this to the averaged output. I can't directly average my input. What I need to have happen is I need to remember the last 3 inputs, and then I need to add them up and divide by 3 in order to average them. So I'm going to right-click on my loop, and anytime you have a loop, something that repeats itself, you have the option to add a shift register. And once I wire a piece of data up to the shift register, it knows what data type that register is. So it starts as black because it could be anything. It could be text, it could be integers, it could be floating points, it could be booleans, it could be anything. And this is remembering the last data point, and it will update here. So as a quick demo, I'm going to put a really long timer in. Oops, I already have my tools open. So I'm going to come back over here. Programming, timing, wait. I'm going to create a constant on that timer. I'm going to make this, something really long, 5,000 seconds, let's say. And what should happen, and we're going to look at a tool to figure out exactly how this implements, but what should happen is when I hit run, if I change my input, this is not averaged yet. It will eventually change my averaged output. And now let's see what the light bulb does. So this light bulb here highlights execution, and now I can see this is 2, and that became 2. And so it went in here. When I update my input, this is now going to be 3. This is still 2 until the next rotation through. So now it's 3 and then it matches. So let's 4. So my input will update to 4, but my shift register is the last value. And let's change it to 5. So now my input updates to 5. My shift register is still 4. Okay, so hopefully that illustrates what this shift register is doing. And now my proposal was let's average some data. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button. It's going to take a 5-second loop to stop. And now once it's stopped, I'm going to change this to something more reasonable. Let's update this to 1 second. Okay. In order to average some input, I need to break my wires. I'm going to Control B to get rid of the broken wires. And now I'm going to add elements. And now I could average the last two, for example. Averaging sounds a lot like addition and division. So we're going to add the most recent value and the value before that. We're going to divide it by a constant, the number of values, and then we'll feed this into the averaged output. And so once again, I'm actually going to move my functions out of the way and make some room so I can kind of do both at the same time here. Okay, so I'm going to turn highlight execution on. I'm going to run the program. So now my input is 5, my average is 0 and 0, and so my averaged output is 0. My input is still 5, so my average output now 5, 0, and now you can see kind of how it's updating. So 6 comes through. Now 6 is the most recent, 5 was the one before that, 7 is the most recent, or is the new value, but 6 and 6 are the previous two. So now it's 7 and 7. One of those will get knocked out by 8, and then one of those will get knocked out by 9. And so you can see how the shift register is working, and hopefully you can also see how my averaged output, if I don't change my input here, eventually it's just going to be the same as my input. Okay, so I'm going to do one more thing here, and then we will be done with this video. I'm going to, I think I hit stop. I am going to, make my stop button bigger so that I can always unpress it. I'm going to add a graph so we can kind of see this happening in real time. And actually I chose from the graph toolbar a waveform chart. This is the kind that updates as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my waveform chart in here. I'm just going to display the same data on a chart, and I'm not going to change anything else, and I'm going to run the program. My first value is 10, but my shift register started as 0, so it doesn't update. My second value is 9. So as my shift register updates, it's going to be filling these values in. I think 9 got read twice, so this time it's 9 twice. Then it'll be 8 and 9. And now I took a big jump down to 3, and so what we should see is it smoothly approaches 3 and levels out over time. I'm going to turn off highlight execution because this will run a lot smoother without that on. So now I'm going to update my number, and we're going to see it takes a couple of tries for it to update to 8. And what happens when it ranges out? The range adjusts. So now it's going to approach 22 and level off. Okay, so hopefully that demonstrates for you how a shift register works, how we can take averages, how we can put those averages in a waveform chart. And that concludes this video on shift registers and some of this data manipulation concepts in LabView. Thanks for watching.